of the zine and why I think that you should, and I hope that you will, want to support it. So the zine came about after a little over a year of writing my incarcerated pen pal and friend, Crazy Boy. I got connected with Crazy Boy through the organization Black and Pink, which is an organization that is dedicated to supporting LGBTQ and HIV positive incarcerated folks and incarcerated folks who are living with AIDS. And one of their programs is the Pen Pal program. I had a pen pal prior to Crazy Boy who unfortunately died of medical neglect in a prison. And it took me about a year before I was ready to write again, but I did eventually go back on the Black and Pink website and look at the descriptions of folks who were hoping to get somebody to write with. And I noticed that Crazy Boy described himself as an activist and a witch. And so I am also both of those things. And so I knew that we would have at least something in common. So we started writing and getting to know each other, and as you know was the case and is the case with so many people who are incarcerated, a lot of the letters were full of really, really heavy stuff, and still to this day continue to be full of really heavy things that he experiences in prison and things that he's also experienced prior to being incarcerated. And it's sort of a mix of that really intense violence that he's experienced based on his race, his sexuality, his spiritual beliefs, and also just descriptions of how bored that he was. And so as a free world person and an ally, I often tried to figure out how these letters could bring some kind of healing, or at the very least bring something that would fill his time when he was sort of fortunate enough to just be bored, if that was his problem with the day. So we started talking about tarot quickly because he's interested in that, and we did try to get him a tarot deck, but prison mail room laws and policies are incredibly awful and usually change sometimes from week to week, and so the tarot deck never made it to him. But I decided that it would be cool if I started sending him images of the tarot deck in my letters. So I would print out sort of black and white images of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. Some of you who know the tarot will know that deck. And then I asked him to just write his sort of interpretations, like what he thinks of when he sees these cards, what are his views of what were ultimately just the major Arcana cards that I ended up sending him. And we decided pretty quickly that we wanted to turn this into something, and thought about making it a zine right away, and knew that could be helpful because one of the things that he experiences in prison is he's been fired from a lot of jobs or denied access to getting jobs in the prison, partly because of his political work. So he's sort of known as a troublemaker because he's trying to fight for the rights of himself and his fellow incarcerated friends who suffer terribly inside of the prison. And so there's just been a lot of persecution that he's experienced, and so being able to maintain steady money for his commissary has not been easy. And so we decided this could also be a nice way to try to support his commissary needs. And so this zine is, I think, really special for folks who are into tarot, because I think we don't, in the witch world, mainstream witch world, unfortunately, we get overwhelmingly interpretations of cards from middle-class white ladies primarily. And so I think these perspectives from a queer Black person who grew up in poverty and has experienced being incarcerated since he was 17, I think can be really important and really powerful to get this different perspective on the cards. And to remember that the ways in which, although we might have some core things deeply in common, in fact, some of these descriptions that Crazy Boy writes about, some I could have no idea what it must have been like, and other things, including his just describing, his experience of sexual assault. It's like there's a human experience that unfortunately so many of us can understand sort of regardless of race and class. But on the other hand, it's also really important to remember the ways in which oppression manifests and harms people in unique and distinct ways. And I think that his stories, which are not all terrible, right? Some of his interpretations of the cards are not about trauma. But when they are, I think that it's an important message. So that's what I think this is valuable for in terms of the witch world. And in terms of folks who are not into tarot or witchy stuff at all, but are dedicated to abolition or even just prison reform, I hope that you can see this as a project that brought at least a little bit of solace to his days, as he was able to sort of write through different experiences through these cards, a way to support at least one person who's incarcerated, but also this will help him do the work that he wants to do to support other incarcerated people. And I think a lot of folks who are interested in organizing workers, whether they're in prison or not, would be really inspired by the work that he's trying to do to support his fellow friends, comrades who are incarcerated. So I think that this is lovely for everybody. And if you aren't interested in having a zine yourself, there's an option to just sponsor a zine for somebody else. We're going to try to get the zine into as many hands of incarcerated people as possible who are interested. There's a big need to find healing in all of us, right? But I think that for those of us who know that tarot can be really healing, I think it will be really special to try to get this into the hands of people who are looking for healing on the inside as well. And so that's my spiel. I hope that this feels like you might be interested in supporting this project. And I thank you for your time. And I hope that this gets into your hands very soon. I will be completing the zine at a residency at the Future in Minneapolis, which is a beautiful community space and maker space, primarily occupied by witches. And I feel very lucky to be able to be doing this residency the very first week of 2019. So that's when the zine will be completed. And I would be really grateful to have the support to take that whole week and get all the supplies I need and devote every day of that week to getting this done and getting this into the hands of people who want it. So thank you, and that's it.